So if you've been nerdy enough to keep up with the nerd news, you'll know that the studio that made these games is currently working on their next big title. With expectations running high and patience running low, I'd like to perform a little thought experiment with you today. Call it boredom or call it restlessness after not having posted a video in well over a month. Either way. Bethesda Game Studios has teased their next project as, quote, big and crazy, and of course, we're all hoping that this secret project of theirs will be a great and genre-defining role-playing game, but what if? What if they didn't care so much about that? I'm not saying they don't, but what if they focused on all the wrong things, and we were left with an open world that was mediocre, average, ordinary, humdrum? What would this game look like? By asking ourselves this question, hopefully we'll come out the other side with a deeper understanding of Bethesda Game Studios as a developer, where they're currently going, where they've been, and what they should be looking out for moving forward. Here are just 6 ways you could virtually guarantee that Bethesda's next open world is a mediocre one. Number 1, develop for hype. When it comes time to market your open world game, you want to generate headlines like these. News stories that tout how many lines of dialogue you recorded or how much bigger your world map is than in your previous titles. This is because when an open world game gets announced, the conversation inevitably turns to asking that same age-old question: how big is it? It seems that these days, the bigger your game world is, the more hype it will generate in the game's media. If your goal is maximum exposure, this modern obsession with quantity will work in your favor. Don't be afraid to overinflate your game. You can do this in many different ways, but the quickest way is with random generated content. This mechanic has gone by many names over the years, but here at Bethesda Game Studios, we call it the Radiant Quest system. In Skyrim, it took the form of clearing endless bandit camps, and in Fallout 4, it meant rescuing endless settlements. Keep this mechanic around, and by all means, look for more ways to augment it or expand it into the future. As a matter of fact, you could say that endless player busy work is the goal. That's because all anyone seems to talk about in the online forums these days is their hours played rather than hours enjoyed. Number 2. Create illusion rather than immersion. Bethesda fans are, at their core, childish assholes. In Skyrim, we took trick shots at butterflies and were surprised to discover we couldn't only shoot them out of the air but collect their wings off the ground afterwards. In Fallout 3, our character was given their first gun, and we immediately used it to shoot our fathers. We did this just because we could, but we discovered Bethesda recorded dialogue just for this occasion. Taken alone, these details don't amount to much, but taken together, you get that buzzword that game developers in their marketing campaigns love so much: immersion. And it's fairly easy to replicate the illusion of this immersion. If you're partial to metaphors, then think about it like this. Imagine your open world game as a ball pit. Each ball representing one of these small details you included in your game that encourages players to jump in, explore, and be mischievous. Now, if you start taking some of the balls away, you still have a ball pit. So let's say you put as few balls in the ball pit as possible. Truth be told, some of the kids won't notice the difference because, to the casual observer, it still looks and smells like a ball pit. As for the occasional kid who enjoys jumping in and diving deep into his ball pits, well, he won't be happy, but let's be real, it's gonna play in your ball pit anyway. Number 3, embrace the familiar. People are really hung up on this game. 15 years after its release, in fact, and people still won't shut up about it. Morrowind was Bethesda's 3rd big fantasy role-playing game in the Elder Scrolls franchise. Even if you haven't played it, you're at least aware of it. That's because the game's bizarre characters, creatures, and landscapes really left an impression on people. You could say that Morrowind's boldness to be different and weird, it stood out. This kind of world building is tough though, and a bit risky. When you have an unfamiliar setting, you have to spend additional time and resources explaining creatively why this world exists in the state that it does. A bizarre and nuanced world has to be constantly justified to the player through insightful dialogue and a rich backstory and lore. You know, it's a lot less complicated than that and a lot safer. Sticking with what people know, sticking with the familiar. For example, If you're creating a fantasy game, make it look and feel as Tolkien-esque as possible. You might have to spend additional time explaining what a silt strider is to someone, but you don't need to waste time explaining, say, a goblin. And this principle works for other settings too. If you're developing a game set in the post-apocalypse, rehash old ideas and don't try anything too daring. Make your bad guys clearly bad and your good guys clearly good. If you catch yourself dreaming up concepts that are wacky or odd, pull back and implement more tame ideas in the final product. Number 4. Treat everything as a technology problem, even when it isn't. It's no secret that Bethesda's games sometimes fall under scrutiny for their dialogue. The kind of dialogue that makes some characters feel robotic. Instead of placing additional emphasis on writing and narrative, use technology to patch this problem. If Oblivion taught us anything, it's that people like wheels. Take the tech-first approach to solve every problem. This will not only keep your team on the USS Bethesda busy, but it'll ensure no real progress in this area is actually made. Number 5. Keep your team small. Bethesda Game Studios is in the business of open-world games, and due to their sheer size and scope, these mammoth projects are some of the hardest to produce. CD Projekt Red had about 300 developers working on their open world for The Witcher 3. Rockstar had a team of over 1,000 working on GTA 5. Bethesda's team, for Fallout 4, clocked in at about 100 developers. This inevitably results in less people performing more jobs, which leads us to our last item on the list. Number 6. Devalue the writer. When you ask someone about their favorite moments in a Bethesda role-playing game, 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you about a moment made possible by good storytelling. Whether it's a particularly good narrative they stumbled across by accident, or maybe a fiction they constructed entirely in their imaginations within the framework of a well-written universe. This goes all the way back to the origins of role-playing games themselves, where the best dungeon masters among us were the best storytellers. The Witcher 3 won most of the critical acclaim the year Fallout 4 was released, and whether you personally agree with that judgment or not is irrelevant. People who played it seem to genuinely think that CD Projekt Red were the best dungeon masters that year. Their characters had a sense of nuance and realism in that game that you can only achieve with good writing. If you were curious enough to watch the credits roll at the end of The Witcher 3, you would note that their team boasted writers who were published authors and crime novelists. Fallout 4's team sadly boasted no such professionals. As a matter of fact, due to the small size of their team, Bethesda Game Studios didn't have a single person credited simply as writer on Fallout 4. Whereas The Witcher 3, in stark contrast, had 5 fully dedicated writers, in addition to their quest designers. So, if your goal on the next project is a highly functional but highly underwritten open world, keep the professional writers off the payroll a little while longer, and keep in line with all the other points we've underlined. Do that, and I can almost guarantee that progress will take the back seat to stagnation, mediocrity, humdrumness. As someone who's been playing role-playing games for most of my life now, Bethesda Game Studios is ranked as one of my all-time favorite developers. Yeah, I'm an optimist. I think their best years are still ahead of them. The fact that their next big release likely won't carry the names Elder Scrolls or Fallout in it has me nervous. Excited, but nervous for them. My name is Josh, thank you for watching. If you'd like to see what most of the cast is currently working on, click here. If you want to see next month's upcoming videos before anyone else, click here. And if you want to follow us, you can do that here and here.